are talking about Monster Hunter. This one stars Milla Jovovich and was directed and co-written by Paul W.S. Anderson. You've also got Tony Jaa and Ron Perlman co-starring. Now this is based off a video game, and full disclosure, I have heard of the video game, but I have not played it, so I'm not familiar with it. I understand that it is quite different in regards to, it doesn't have anything to do with our world, so to speak, the video game. So I'm only going to be judging this as a film, rather than kind of telling you how much of a different adaptation this is from the game. Anyway, what is the story? Milla Jovovich is a captain of a group of army rangers that are in the desert area already, and they seem to go through some type of portal which lands them in this kind of other world, this kind of parallel dimension, so to speak. And it is filled with various kind of monsters that obviously these group of soldiers run afoul of. But it's also populated by a group of humans, and it's essentially the tale of primarily Milla Jovovich's character trying to get back to her own world whilst kind of allying with this potential kind of particular kind of human and his sort of group of friends. What will happen? You have to watch the movie to find out. So first of all, let's talk about what works. I think if you want big spectacle kind of like action monster effects and fights and things, this movie has certainly got it for you. There are lots of kind of like monster fight scenes, lots of explosions, lots of martial art fights. It's just kind of like an action scene, a little bit of kind of like dialogue, character building, action scene, blah blah blah, rinse and repeat. So there is lots of kind of action on display here, and I've seen people complain about the quality of the CGI and the monsters. I didn't think it was too bad. I thought the CGI was fairly good, to be honest with you. I mean, maybe I've been watching too many B movies of really bad CGI. So when we have a big budget one, I'm kind of, I'm easily bored. But I thought the CGI was fine. I kind of liked the design here of the monsters. I thought it was all pretty good. Obviously, I know it's based on a game. And I thought Milla Jovovich does a pretty good job of her as a leading lady. Obviously, she's run the kind of Resident Evil franchise, movie-wise, for many years. So it's no skin of her nose. I think she makes a likeable and capable kind of sort of leading lady in kind of action films, and is sort of believable in the role, I have to say. I actually quite liked her chemistry with both the army people that we see in the movie and the kind of her new allies in the form of these kind of humans that they have in this planet as well. I thought that was quite good. I quite like some of the interactions with the kind of the monsters and the various different how they kind of use different tactics to kind of try and sort of take them down. It kind of does feel like a video game, to be honest with you, finding the weak spot, so to speak. But nonetheless, it was kind of quite fun, and it didn't outstay its welcome, and it was just lots of kind of brainless fun, to be honest with you. And there lies the problem, I suppose, is that this movie is very, very shallow. It's just, there's no real depth to the story. It just seems to just kind of just happen. Oh yeah, there's a portal, army people go through it, and there's a bunch of fights, and it's nothing really more than that. There's no real story as such. It's just a fight for survival and the barest minimum of narrative to kind of get you from point A to point B. It kind of reminds me of Robinson Crusoe, but with monsters. But just the kind of the relationship with, say, Milla Jovovich's character and her kind of like one and only human component counterpart played by Tony Jaa. Now the problem, I think, because Tony Jaa's character doesn't speak English, there's not a huge amount of dialogue in a lot of this film, so it never really feels particularly deep because of that either. It's a stylistic choice, but it lends itself to that action dynamic, I suppose, but it never really makes the film seem anything more than quite shallow, to be honest. Now, as a video game adaptation goes, I think some things work some things are adapted better to screen than others. So, having not played the games, and kind of just watching this as a film. I've got some critiques about how I think the parallel world was depicted. For example, we know nothing about it. So if you've played the games, great, you probably know the history of it and stuff. But as a viewer coming into this as a film, we know virtually nothing about it. We're told that there was an ancient civilization. That's it. There's magical weapons. We have no idea why they're magical weapons, how they got there, where the magic comes from. Nothing. They just are magical weapons with no kind of explanation. You know, they're just there. We have these other characters that look like the Lost Boys from Peter Pan, and I've got to say this is where maybe some of the adaptation I think doesn't translate, because we got this arid world where people seem to be living in kind of medieval sort of style conditions, yet they've got hair gel and sort of hairspray and can dye their hair and put it up into spikes. And there's this kind of steampunk aesthetic, and it just looks really out of place. It just doesn't look. And this is the sort of thing you'd see in a video game, like a Asian video game. And I know that's all the kind of thing, but when you put it into a realistic aesthetic, I just think it looks so out of place. It looks like a bunch of cosplayers basically going out on an adventure, especially when you can contrast it to the beginning, obviously, where we have the Army Rangers kind of obviously in their military garb, and then they cross paths with these cosplay looking costumes. To me it was really jarring. It's just thinking that just doesn't look practical for the world. It might well be the aesthetic of the game, but for a film, it just to me, as someone who doesn't play the games, it just looked like an odd choice, to be honest. I think, as much as I like some of the kind of the casting in regards to Milla Jovovich, I think Ron Perlman here is a little miscast. I wasn't really buying his kind of character there. It just seems very rushed. I think there was too long where we have just Tony Jaa and Milla Jovovich's character. Then we're introduced to this kind of other bunch of characters at the end, and they're not really. They're just there. They just feel like it's a little rushed. And then our army guys, again, they kind of feel like cannon fodder to a certain degree. So I have to say, I think this movie can be enjoyed as just visual spectacle with kind of monster effects, fight scenes, and kind of Milla Jovovich kicking ass. But I think it's pretty shallow other than that, really. It's a fun movie just to watch some good action sequences. But if you want any meat on the bones, then it's a little lacking in that area. And I have to be honest, I thought some of the stylistic choices here were kind of on the weak side. And my God, Milla Jovovich, I've never seen a human character be able to shrug off kind of damage like she does in this movie. I mean, she gets battered, thrown, dropped, stabbed, all sorts. And she is not a superhuman in any measure here. But she seems to just be able to pick herself up and continue to kill monsters and stuff. It is to the point of ridiculousness, to be honest. Even more so than the Resident Evil films. Whilst everyone around her seems to, die pretty easy. There are a little bit of horror effects as well, like kind of these spider monsters and stuff. So that was probably the best scenes, I think, these kind of spider monster things. But overall, visually it's fun, but it's really just that. It's the bimbo of a horror movie. It kind of looks attractive, and it's a little bit of fun, but you'll get bored if you have too much of that sort of thing. 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.